Welcome back to Pressers by FedNet, where news conferences from the United States Congress become podcast episodes for your listening on your time. Focus for Senate leaders at news conferences on May 19th were on budget reconciliation as a package with immigration enforcement funding neared. Majority Leader John Thune was joined by Republican Whip John Barrasso. The following material is protected by copyright.
Good afternoon, everyone. The former vice president said here recently that this is a moment when there are no bad ideas. With all due respect to the former vice president, it seems to me, at least the Democrats, there's no shortage of bad ideas. And chief among those is this idea that they're going to defund the police. That is the mantra of the Democrat Party. It's the position of the Democrats here in Washington in the House and the Senate. And as a consequence of that, Republicans are going to be forced to take care of the American people, because I think the question that most Americans, the question that's before us is, do we want to live in safety and security? And obviously the answer to that for most Americans, I think, is going to be yes. And if you look at the record of success that this administration and working with this Congress has had, in the last 12 months, there was not a single illegal immigrant released into this country. Last 12 months, not a single one. And you go back to just 2 years ago, under the Biden administration, there were literally thousands being released into the country every single day. So this is about whether or not you want to live in a country that is safe and secure, where you support law enforcement, the important job they do, Customs and Border Patrol and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and or whether you don't. And Republicans do. Republicans are going to have law enforcement's back. And so this week we're going to vote on the Secure America Act, which is a piece of legislation that will fund ICE and CBP not only for this year, but through the entirety of the Trump administration, because the Democrats have adopted a defund the police and open borders policy, which is incredibly detrimental to this country, and we're going to ensure that that doesn't happen. So that's what's going to be on the floor here, hopefully later this week. I expect, again, that the Democrats are, we'll see what they want to do in terms of amendments, but I doubt you'll see many amendments that have to do with Border Patrol or ICE and Customs Enforcement. I think most of what I should say Immigration and Customs Enforcement, I think what most of you're going to see is a bunch of unrelated amendments. But we're going to stay focused on the job, keep our foot on the gas, I should say, and ensure that the American people are able to live in safety and security in their communities in this country. Senator Bozeman. Or Senator Barrasso, sorry. Senator Barrasso. Bozeman was here.
Democrats are the party of open borders and illegal immigrant criminals. And Democrats have chained themselves to the defund the police movement of the radical wing of this country. That's what we're dealing with here, because since January, Democrats have blocked critical funding for Immigration and Customs Enforcement. They have blocked critical funding for Border Patrol. And if you ask most Americans, is it important to have a funded Immigration and Customs Enforcement? Is it important to have funded Border Patrol? The answer is clearly yes. If you want to live in a community that is secure and in a country that is safe, it is important to do those things. So Republicans are going to vote this week on the Secure America Act. And I don't expect a single Democrat to vote for it. We're going to be the ones funding ICE, funding Border Patrol. And you say, why are the Democrats all going to vote against it? Because the defund the police group is really now the driving force within the Democrat Party. And Democrats in the Senate and in the House are willing to sacrifice, to give up the safety and security of our nation to illegal immigrant criminals.
Given that you've spent months trying to persuade the president to endorse John Cornyn in the Texas primary, and given that the NRSC has invested heavily to help Cornyn win that primary, how personally disappointed or frustrated are you with the president's decision to endorse Ken Paxton today?
Well, I think you all know my position on this issue. I've made it very clear for months now. And Senator Cornyn is a principled conservative. He is a very effective senator for the state of Texas. But none of us control what the president does. He made his decision about that. That doesn't change the way I feel. And I am certainly supportive of, will continue to be supportive of Senator Cornyn and his reelection.
How much harder has it made it to keep a majority? How much harder has the president's decision here made it for you, the number one job to keep the Republican majority, given your concerns about Ken Paxton's viability as a candidate?
We look at, lots of races around the country, and the majority runs through a lot of different states. We have 24 seats up this time. The Democrats have only 9, so we've got a lot more ground to defend. We also have a couple of offensive opportunities. So, one state doesn't determine the outcome of this election, but obviously we care about every state, and we care about helping see our incumbents succeed. That being said, I feel very good about where we are. As I've said before, I think when it comes to winning elections, it starts with quality candidates. Then you've got to have a record of accomplishment to run on. You've got to have resources to get that message out, tell that story to the American people. And then you've got to have a really substantial effort to get out the vote, a ground game. And I feel confident in all those elements in all the key states where we're going to have competitive elections this year. And I'm very confident we'll hang on and maybe even expand the majority in the United States Senate, which is counter, I know, to the sort of the narrative these days. But the truth of the matter is we've got the right candidates in the right places at the right time and with the right resources. We're going to win some races.
Is Ken Paxton a quality candidate? Is Ken Paxton a quality candidate?
Did Trump give you a heads up beforehand, or did you find out via Trussell?
I found out, I think, where everybody else did.
There's been a lot of frustration. There's been a lot of...
Minority Leader Chuck Schumer was joined by Democrats Amy Klobuchar and Jeff Merkley, ranking member of the Budget Committee.
Okay, I want to thank Senators Klobuchar and Merkley for being here with me. So, political payouts, personal perks, and vanity projects, and now a get-out-of-jail-free card for Trump and all his family on tax matters. That's what the GOP under Trump's leadership stands for right now. We've learned that Trump's funneling nearly $2 billion in taxpayer dollars into a slush fund for his friends, his far-right loyalists, and January 6th insurrectionists. He made a deal with himself. First, unbelievably, he sues the government for $10 billion. Then he says, with his other hand, I am the government, I'll settle for $1.7 billion. And the money goes to all kinds of assorted characters who don't deserve it, probably Trump himself. Trump could care less that the Americans are struggling to put food on the table and pay higher prices at the pump. He cares only about enriching himself. And as I said, his corruption knows no end. His new slush fund contains a provision that there should be no prosecution or investigation of Trump or his family members on any tax matter, a get-out-of-jail-free card that he negotiated with himself. What kind of America is this? What kind of man is this? Where are the Republicans on this kind of stuff? Well, let me tell you, they sure as hell aren't standing up to the taxpayers, standing up for the taxpayers, or standing up to Donald Trump. While working families are getting crushed by the cost of rent and groceries and gas and health care, ballroom Republicans are working through the night to salvage their plan to force taxpayers to foot the bill for Trump's gilded palace. How out of touch can they be? Senate Democrats fought back. We derailed their first attempt to grant Trump his billion-dollar ballroom wish. Right now, we're waiting to see ballroom Republicans' next move. But let me be clear. I don't care if the Republicans ask for $1 billion, $1 million, or a single dollar. Every penny of taxpayer money for Donald Trump's vanity project is a penny too many. Senate Democrats will continue to fight tooth and nail to ensure not a dime of taxpayer funds go to it. And as we fight this billion-dollar ballroom, we're not standing down on stopping the tens of billions of dollars more that Republicans want to pour into Trump's secret police force and violent ICE raids. In the birdbath and on the floor, we'll force Republicans again and again to show what they are fighting for. They are fighting not for hardworking Americans. They're fighting for their billionaire boss's palace. On the War Powers vote, Later this afternoon, Democrats will force another choice on Republicans. For the 8th time, Democrats are going to force a vote on our War Powers Resolution to withdraw troops from hostilities with Iran. Trump just said this morning, quote, "We may have to give them another hit," talking about Iran. Yesterday, he went from threatening to blow Iran into oblivion to a few hours later saying a peace deal was imminent. How can we stand this kind of liar as president? He just flips. Truth matters at nothing to him, at nothing. Is it Groundhog Day? That's what it seems like with Trump when it comes to Iran. Senate Republicans need to be honest with themselves. Trump is no closer to ending this war, and all the while Americans are struggling under skyrocketing costs and our troops remain in harm's way. Last week we got one more Republican to join with us. Republicans, it's time to break the cycle, support our War Powers Resolution. No president should be able to drag this country into war alone, and what seems to be on almost a whim. Senator Klobuchar.
Thank you. I'm going to start with, I know what is on everyone's mind, and that is that, yes, Minnesota was awarded the NFL draft for 2028. So they went purple, as did I. We're pretty excited about this after everything our state's been through in the last year. Other issues. Right now, families are getting stuck with skyrocketing costs. Electricity bills are through the roof. Housing is up. Prices are so high. For the first time in years, they've wiped out the wage growth Americans have earned. Gas in Minnesota tends to be a little under the national average, but right now it is over $4.40 a gallon. Diesel is up over $5.50. Farmers are already hit by tariffs, and now they've got the cost of fertilizer, with 50% of urea going through the Straits of Hormuz, 30% of ammonia. And anyone in the checkout line, you don't need all these numbers, could tell you what's happening. They know beef prices are up 14.8%, vegetables are up 11.5%, coffee is up 18.5%. And so while Trump wants to pay for his ballroom and throw that into a bill where he could be helping people with health care or paying for local police officers, we now find out they've also started a slush fund and, as Chuck noted, have decided that he, all of his companies, his family, their subsidiaries, are immune from any tax examinations or prosecutions. So he is looking out to protect his corporate interests and his family, while Americans are left with a Memorial Day picnic that they can hardly afford. The American people are fed up. New York Times poll out yesterday found the administration's approval on the cost of living is at 28%. Literally, these polling organizations do not have the lines on their graphs to go that low. A majority of Americans oppose the additional funds for ICE and Border Patrol. Yeah, they want order at the border, but they are not in favor of creating an agency in ICE that is now bigger than the Marines or bigger than the FBI. But instead of focusing on bringing down costs or helping the American people, our colleagues, unfortunately, on the other side of the aisle, are talking about ballrooms and debating about that and more money for ICE. The $70 billion in that bill, the additional funds, what would that do? You could hire 200,000 local police officers, extend the health care premium tax credits for 2 years, just as we've learned that 1 out of 5 Americans have dropped their coverage under the Affordable Care Act. It would provide seniors with dental, hearing, and vision for a year, building 700,000 more homes. I think if you said to Americans, would you like to give $70 billion for ICE, or do you want to build 700,000 more homes? We know what they would say. Or we could say, do you want to put $70 billion more into ICE, or do you want to provide child care for 3.5 million American children? So that's the question. Those are the value judgments. Those are the cost judgments. And they're the ones that are not focused on bringing costs down for the American people. And with that, Jeff.
Gold-plated, billion-dollar ballroom boondoggle. Try saying that fast. Gold-plated, billion-dollar ballroom boondoggle. It's hard to say. It's even harder to swallow. A Louis XIV massive building that turns the White House into a little auxiliary dwelling unit. A ballroom, symbolic of an authoritarian in a strongman state, destroying the East Wing, the People's House. In reconciliation, we won a round. We pursued all the arguments under the bird bath, and the ballroom for the moment is out. But we understand our Republican friends are trying to do exactly what Trump wants and find new language to put in, so stay tuned. And then we're looking at this extraordinary impact on the American families in costs that my colleague from Minnesota has so well expressed. So much of those costs we're seeing being driven by the war in Iran. We're seeing the cost at the pump. We're seeing the cost of the fertilizer that can't get through. We're seeing the 3.8% inflation rate. These are factors from the war. Project Epic Fury has become Project Epic Failure. We will see where the next rounds of the bird bath go, but not one penny in this reconciliation bill goes to address the challenges that American families are facing on health care, on housing, on education, or invest in American infrastructure. Not one penny for families, but a massive amount of money for ICE and CBP. And realize none of it's needed. Why do I say that? Because they're already sitting on $103 billion of unobligated funds. The normal budget for those two agencies is about $20 billion a year. They're sitting on 5 years plus unobligated funds from last year's bill. What we saw last year in the big, ugly betrayal of a bill was billionaires win and families lose. Americans hate that bill, and what do we get this year? Billionaires win, families lose. How about instead, families thrive? And the affluent, they pay their fair share.
Thank you,
Leader Schumer.
Yes.
Can I ask you, do you feel that the Democrats' chances of winning in Texas got better today with the endorsement of Ken?
Look, Texas is a huge mess for the Republicans, and I believe that we're in much better shape taking back Texas than we were a few days ago, and I think we're going to win Texas.
Leader Schumer, but you know how expensive Texas is. It costs hundreds of millions of dollars. Is the DSCC and SMP willing to spend as much as it takes to win in Texas?
Let me just say, Tallarico is talking to people about their real needs. Paxson and Cornyn, both of those people are talking about things that Texans don't care about. And so we are going to win Texas, and we are going to win Texas, whether it's Cornyn or Paxson. Yes? Look, we need a good housing bill. The best way, quickest way to get a housing bill done is for the House to pass the Senate bill, plain and simple.
On
China. Or as Trump calls it, China.
Do you think are we in a more dangerous position with China in terms of potential for conflict with the president vacillating on his U.S. position on arms sales to Taiwan?
I think that Trump's trip to China was a fiasco. The United States is in a worse position in many, many ways than we were before he left. He got a red carpet, he got a photo op, and then he got nothing that helps us and conceded many things that hurt us, including what he did on Taiwan.
Watch the process unfold on the Senate floor over coming days on YouTube at FedNet TV. Unauthorized reproduction, distribution, or use of this episode without expressed written permission from FedNet is prohibited. Thank you for listening.